During the last few weeks on Mixed Media Masters, we've been having a lot of fun creating different type of textures using acrylic paints, different techniques, different approaches. And today we're going to take on something that one of you suggested. It's a very good suggestion. I'm going to show you five of them, 5 techniques of ways you can use your fingers to create the textures that you need. This week on Mixed Media Masters. Hello makers and welcome to Spectiva Studios. If it's your first time here, then really happy to have you here. Please hit the subscribe button if you like learning about painting and creating artwork and mixed media of all sorts. We have a lot of great stuff for you. Now, as promised, today, based upon a reader suggestion, a viewer suggestion, I'm going to show you 5 different things we can do from a texture standpoint in painting using just our hands. Yeah, this is hands only, not hands-free at all. So let's start with the first technique, which is fairly basic. You'll see I have I'm working with a standard 6x6 inch piece of heavy-duty watercolor paper, just as a proof of concept, something for us to work on here on my art table. And I'm gonna grab my finger, and this first approach, I'm going to use it pretty much like a paintbrush. Now again, you should have something to wash your hands, not to be too far away from the sink if you need it. I'm using one of my best friends here. Yeah, a roll of paper towel. And hopefully, I don't get any paint on my lovely shirt, but if I do, who's going to notice, right? So this is a good thing. This is like camo for artists right here. But I'm going to come in here and I'm going to just pick up a little bit of paint with my finger. And again, what I do with this is entirely up to me. I'm going to use it and direct it the same way I would if I were working with a paintbrush. Now, there's going to be a slightly different approach, and maybe in between clean my paintbrush off with a paper towel here. But let's come in here and let's create a few different possibilities of what we can do artistically. I'm going to work with just some basic shapes because that's going to be the easiest things to work with. How about this teal color here? And I'll do a little something in here as well. There we go. Now I can probably do something other than just ovals. Let's see if we can do something that's a little bit more squared off, and we'll do that. And I'll be honest, the human finger is not as sharp a tool as a palette knife or even a paintbrush if we want to make some really tight corners. So everything we do is going to be a little soft no matter what. Let's get some red in there because we can kind of create a line to connect everything together here. We'll swing around here. And we'll pop up here. And again, I'm leaning away from this being the finest piece of artwork I've ever created. It is finger painting, but it is also something that allows us to create just a look and feel. Now, I'm not saying it's always going to come in handy to throw your paintbrush down and say, all right, fingers, let's go. But if you want to get something that is a little bit more of that kind of soft effect, and it gives you an opportunity also to blur and blend colors very easily, right? Because you can also, you can feel it. You can kind of feel where the paint is and where it isn't and work that way. So there's a bunch of cool things that we might be able to do using this technique. So to kick it off, our first technique is, using your fingers in essence as a paintbrush. Now, let's take a look at our second finger technique. Now for technique number 2, we're going to work with, first of all, I've put down some protective sheeting here on my art table because we're going to do something that's going to be possibly a little bit messy. And that is I have 3 different ramekins here with different colored paints in them. And these paints have been watered down a bit to make them much more flexible, as it were. And what I'm going to do with my fingers is something we've done recently on this channel. But I'm going to come in here and dip my fingers into the paint. And then I'm going to flick my fingers at my paper. So again, I might drip off a little bit, and then we're doing a spattering effect here. And again, I'm going to make sure I have a paper towel to to work on here between courses. I may need to scrub my fingers later. Let's do the same thing with this little bit of purple in here. And again, kind of drip off, and then we're going to create a spatter effect using just our fingers. That's looking pretty nice, actually. I'm not gonna lie, not so bad. And let me get, again, without getting paint all over myself and everything else, let's do the same thing. We have some red here, which will drip off, and bump, 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 bump. Oh, that's kind of nice. And again, the hardier the flick, you get some pretty interesting trail effects in there as well. Now, I could probably drop in additional colors, but again, this is really more of a proof of concept style piece. Let me get some more of the lighter blue in here. Again, we can come back and blend things on top of things we've already put down if we need to, and get an overall effect. But once again, the objective here is to share with you one of these texturing approaches, and being able to use your fingers from a flicking standpoint creates a really cool spattering effect that's going to be really handy with a lot of stuff we're doing. Now again, if you're working with a canvas, let's say you're painting on a canvas, being able to have something that you can flick at the canvas and create this kind of speckled effect could be incredibly, incredibly interesting. Anyway, that is texture number 2, using just our hands. Let's go and look at texture number 3. Now our third approach is actually more of a painting approach than it is a texture as such. But what we're going to do is, again, I have just a sample piece of paper to work on and my now paint-covered digits here, which we're going to work with. And this time what I want to do is I want to work with the tips of my fingers, and as I dip them into the paint, I want to be able to get basically a dot of paint on the tip of my finger, and I'm going to approach it almost as if I'm doing a pointillism type of painting, in which I'm going to be using the tip of my finger to come in and leave dots on the piece of paper that I'm working on. Now these dots are going to vary in size depending on how hard I press onto the paper. If I'm just barely touching it with the paint, then it's going to be smaller, and if I give it a bigger push, then it's going to be bigger. And the objective here, once again, is just how can I use these different dots of paint if I also use other colors. Let's drop some red in here, for example. And, we'll pick up some of the areas where the blue isn't initially. Now, what would probably work best here is once we put in a color like blue, let it dry. And then when we put the red in, we can be able to, in some cases, cover over where the blue is without necessarily making purple happen. And just an opportunity to, we'll get some yellow in here, we'll get some basic primary colors. That's what we're working in here. And this can just be a really fun way to fill in a space. Again, if you're working on a canvas that's, on an easel or something, it's an easy enough task to just be able to dip your fingers in and just leave dots of color where you need them. And in this case, if we mix them all up, we can create something that's really kind of interesting from an effect standpoint. Now, I'd go a lot deeper to this in that, I would want to make sure that I figured out what kind of blend of colors, if we stand back from our painting, the red and the yellow or whatever colors we're going to be using are going to reveal. And again, I'd put down a layer and then wait for it to dry and then cover it up with other things to create a more interesting effect. But proof of concept, that's what we're going for right here. So fingertip pointillism is really what we want to be able to do here, and being able to work with dots. Now let's take a look at technique number 4. For our next technique, it's going to be a variation on our fingertip painting, but this time we're going to go a little bit deeper into the finger itself. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I have my piece of paper set up. Also, I'm working with a transparent sheet of plastic. This actually was part of a picture frame. I just didn't need the plastic in it, so I took it out. But I'm going to use this as a workspace here, and what I want to do is I'm going to lay a little bit of my paint down on it, like right there. And what I'd like to do is I'm going to take my brayer, this little platen roller, and I have them in different sizes. I'm going to use the small one. And what I want to do is I want to spread my paint out on this plastic sheet. I want to make it very, very thin. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to kind of make it as thin as I can in here. There we go. Not a bad effect. That will work. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my finger again, but this time I'm going to press it into the paint, and I'm going to pick it up because I want to be able to create paintings or effects using my fingerprint. So I'm going to come in here and again fingerprint myself, as it were. Maybe we'll come up here and do another one. Now, my recommendation is don't create lots of artwork with your fingerprints on and then go rob a bank. That would probably be a bad idea. And maybe just as a point of concern, don't rob a bank. How about that? So you don't have to worry about it. No guilty conscience, and your artwork won't suffer as a result. Now, by the way, you're going to get the effect of your actual fingerprint when you come in here. You can see it here. And once again, if I change colors here, I'm going to add an additional color. Let me just wipe off my brayer here so I don't get blue on everything. A different color. I have a pink here. I don't know if it's going to work for what we're doing, but what the heck, let's give it a try. Again, I'm putting a dot of it right down here at the bottom. Doesn't have to be too much. And I'm going to use the brayer once again to spread out. That's getting a little blue in there, but this is why we wash things off in between. We'll get that just kind of thin in there as well. Not so bad. And then once again, finger, which is a little blue right now. I'm going to pick up some of the pink, I'm going to drop it in here, and I can start to overlay it on some of the other things I've already created. So if I want to layer it in here on top of some of my blue, you can see the effect coming through. Yeah, we can kind of go a little bit deeper on some of these, press down. But it's a really, really cool effect. And you could quite literally cover huge sheets of paper with their fingerprints and blend all these colors together. Again, a lot of times, if you've ever studied halftones and halftoning, where it's kind of the overlay of colors and the colors they make and the results that come out of it, is really a big part of what we want to go for here. And being able to use our fingerprints is really a tool that we have fairly precise control over, right? Most of us are able to get that finger pretty much where we want it to be. And it's going to make things a lot easier. And again, if I have a couple different colors going, just, you know, wipe my finger off in between and come back and pick up some more blue and say, you know what, let's put that in there. And let's cover up this pink right here with a little bit more blue. And of course, I can mix other colors in as well. So anyway, that is the technique I wanted to share with you. Fingerprint painting. How about that? All right, come on back for technique number 5. Our 5th technique is a variation on something we've done in previous videos. What I'm going to do here, again, using only my fingers, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to lay down some bright colors. I have, or a combination of whatever's on my finger and what's in my palette. But let's come in here and let's put some red down. Get that there. I want to get some bright colors at the foundation here. Get some paper towel because I do need to clean my brush, as it turns out. There we go. Let's get some yellow in here as well into this blend. Beautiful. And by the way, one of the things I'm going to want to do is make sure these layers are fairly dry. And I can do that simply by just touching them, right? I'm already here with my finger. I can kind of pass it around and feel the areas that need a little bit more, a little less moisture and a little more moisture, and just kind of spread them about. So I'm going to spread the paint pretty thin. That's my goal. And let's just look at the nice blend we can get, by the way, between colors just using our fingers. So that's pretty nice, and I love the soft edges. So, you know, again, from a blending technique, fingers work pretty well. And that's drying pretty quickly, which is what I wanted to do. Now I'm going to come and grab a darker color, like I have a darker blue here. I'm going to grab that, and I want to drop it on top. Drop it on top of what I'm currently doing in here. I try not to make too much purple and green, but a little is going to happen because we're not letting it dry too much in between. But I'm going to give a square of color here on top. And the reason I'm doing this is I want to try to see if I can reveal some of the brighter colors on the bottom through that block of blue we've made. And I'm going to do that using my fingernail. Now, my fingernails aren't incredibly long, but I'm going to come in here and do the best I can to scratch away. And you can see I'm actually getting some results. I'll use a thumbnail going sideways like that. So depending on what effect I'm going for, I can really get an opportunity to view through the blue that I put on the top and see the red and the yellow before. Now, by the way, this is an Italian technique called sgraffito, and sgraffito is really just that. It's really the origins of graffiti, but the idea that I can scratch through one layer to reveal the colors on the other layer is what it's all about. So again, you know, playing around with that and finding different techniques and different approaches. Now again, this whole video is a little strange in the sense that we're using just one rather odd technique for all of our painting, but I thought you'd appreciate the creativity that can go into just using your hands. You don't have to have lots of special equipment to be a good artist, and being able to come in here and using just the things you have attached to you already can be incredibly, incredibly powerful. So being able to come in and, again, some really fun techniques of whether you're using your fingerprints, whether you're using your fingertips, whether you're spattering content around, whether you're scratching through it, or whether you're simply just making that masterpiece you missed making in kindergarten. It's entirely up to you. Anyway, I hope you found this really a fun video. I had a blast doing it. By the way, if you like what we've done here today, we do things like this every single week. We drop a video every Friday morning, and would love to have you be someone who gets notified as soon as it happens. So hit the subscribe button, and we'll do just that. Anyway, thanks for dropping by. This is Spider, and I'll see you next time.